Thank you for staying with us. Preparations are already in top gear for the smooth transition of power from President Buhari's administration to President-elect Bola Tinubu's administration. One of such plans is appealing to the president not to approve any foreign travels for any official at any level in the outgoing government to avoid difficulties during the takeoff of the incoming government. One person in focus is the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, who has asked for study leave. But the Governor of Zamfara, Bello Matawalle, has said his request should be denied. He further said the Apex Bank governor is still in charge of managing the country's financial and monetary systems and should stay to give account of everything that happened under him, starting with the naira swap policy, which caused untold hardship to Nigerians. Joining us in the studio is a strategy consultant and public affairs analyst, Kenny Adenugba. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to see you again. Exactly. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Right. Now, even the presidency has said that they are not aware of Godwin Emefiele's request to go on study leave. But why is this even a matter if Godwin Emefiele should ask for a study leave at this time? Are people suspicious that he's trying to run away from something, or he doesn't want to give account of something? What exactly do you think is really playing out?
Now, one of the things to first look at is during the currency swap.
Yeah.
At a point, the whereabouts of the CBN governor was actually shrouded in mystery as to whether he was out of town, whether he was in, and things like that. So that created a tremor, so to say. And this time around, you're looking at it, there are always cause and effect. The reality on ground is the fact that Governor Emefiele still has 10 months to go. So the question is, where is study leave coming in? And where I come from, they said there is no smoke without fire.
Fire, okay.
If there is nothing that is close to that, there may not be that rumor. Let us look at it. For me, it's a case of what exactly is going on.
Right.
Is it a case whereby, because the CBN governor reports to the president, in a lot of instances, and is the chairman of the board of the CBN, the question is to go where? 10 months to the end of the tenure. He spent 2 times of 5 years each. That means this is a CBN governor that actually had experienced 2 presidents, so to say, as at now, and may also experience the 3rd president. So in one word, he becomes a CBN governor that spanned 3 presidencies. That's quite interesting, and almost nearly, it's like maybe a first time we will have much of that. So in a way, 10 months to go, where is study leave coming from? It begs the question. And it also leaves people to begin to ask questions. If this is true, of course, Malam Shehu Garba has come out to debunk that the presidency is not aware
of that.
He didn't say that the president did not. Let us look at it.
Separate
he didn't say the president did not give this, or we cannot, but he says we are not aware that something of such.
But is it possible for the president should give assent to something and the presidency is not aware? Is it possible?
Well, the reality is sometimes you ask yourself, who is the president, who is the presidency?
Well, he said the secretariat.
The secretariat, headed by the chief of staff, should also have been aware.
Yes.
Now, the reality is this: we've seen in this particular dispensation where certain things happen and people say we're not aware, and only to find out that it actually held. So in a way, it's neither here nor there. But the reality is, what does the CBN Act itself say? That's one thing we need to consider. The CBN Act actually says that the governor cannot take on anything that will jeopardize his work as a CBN governor. I think Section 9 or so actually raised something like that. That the CBN governor cannot do certain things. And of course, if you want to resign before your time, you need to give 3 months. That's what the Act says. So the question is, if the governor wants to leave, and I keep asking, you have 10 months to go, what study leave is anybody talking about? If the CBN governor wants to go on study leave 10 months to the expiration of his term, then there is more that meets the eyes. That's for me. So in a way, it's a case of saying, where I come from, they say, if I'm permitted to say it in Yoruba, they say, Ojo gate, kojo gate, ofese mejeji, shekini kan, and then egun atiro wole, iyan atiro jade.
You definitely interpret.
I will interpret. That means we're saying that it looks like it's maybe like a mirage, but it could it have been when you have a masquerade, a limping masquerade going to the house, and a limping man comes out of the house, you got to ask questions. Exactly what is going on here. So in a way, there have been those issues of, let us look at it, the currency swap created a problem in the system. People were impoverished. We all faced the music. It doesn't matter whether you have 10 million in your account or you have 10 naira in your account. In fact, some people actually didn't have as much as 10,000 naira, but they will say the problem is because I can't get to the bank. But the issue is that became a major inconvenience for the nation and the people. And we have a fallback that we still can't even clear up as at now. The effect of that situation is still with us.
Yeah.
So the question is, what are the implications of this to the CBN, to the incoming government, as well as to the governor himself? It's only fair, I mean, it's only natural to think that may want to be a bailing in some of these things.
All right, but the point there is, the naira swap policy, one would see it as the government's policy being carried out by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Or let us assume that the CBN as an institution muted it or conceived it, but it would or must have been approved
by the president.
By the president.
So why are there knocks for the CBN governor and so much talk about the CBN governor come and answer for the woes of the naira swap rather than the president taking, because everything is on the bulk of the stops on the table of the president?
The truth is this question we must ask. The reason why the president is the president and he has people to work with him, including the CBN governor, is because he can't be everything and is not a know-all. So the question is, who advised him? Where did the council come from? Who put who put the business case before him for him to approve? It's still, so in whichever way you want to look at it, that means that the advisors or the people who actually are in charge of those kind of advice and what have you, or policy formulation, got it wrong at the time they did. On its own, it may just be a fantastic idea to say, okay, you know what, let's do a currency change. But at the end of the day, people ask questions. Is it actually a change of currency or a change of colors? That is one. Secondly, not at that particular material time. It was precarious to do it just months to a general election. I've never seen it done before anywhere. Really, that you would do.
Nigeria.
And then and of course, there's a way you do currency swap or currency change. It's a gradual thing. You don't come in and slam.
As you inject, you withdraw. As you inject, you withdraw.
It's a matter of time. Yeah. It takes sometimes. For example, in England right now, the currency is going to take maybe like 2 years or thereabout for it to be out of circulation. So as it comes in, it's not going out again until it's such a time when everybody it dissipates and there's no pressure again. But not in this one that. So it means that the policy formulation and the policy execution was actually faulted right from the word go. So the question is, what kind of leadership are we talking about? Anyway, like I would say, right from the word go with this particular CBN governor, I've had issues and I've had my concerns because there have been so much policy somersault. Today you hear of, okay, we're having this for Forex matter. The next 2 weeks, everything is changing. It doesn't help stability. There's no fiscal stability. There's no economic stability in such an environment. And so the last 9 years plus, or thereabout, of this CBN governor, we've had so much of policy mismatch and somersault. So at the end of the day, it's not as if this is just a flash in the pan or just a one-off. It's something that has been consistent with this particular CBN governor's regime, and that becomes a source for concern. So the question is, and then at the same time, he was politically exposed. That is one thing we need to understand. The CBN governor became politically exposed, what we call a PEP, a politically exposed person. he became, which was totally out of order and not in tandem with the CBN Act that brought him in. So the question is, in the light of all of that, you've got to ask questions. So what was the motive of a number of policies that came out from the CBN? And then, so when we want to say the president, the reason why the president is the president and he cannot, and is not a know-it-all is because he should have competent advisors and competent leaders who are around him to tell him about policies and what have you. So in a way, he's still to be blamed as CBN governor, because if those policies didn't come from the CBN, the president will not necessarily have looked at that, because everybody knows that that wasn't the right time to do such project, as it were. So whatever it may be, while we say that the buck stops at the president's table, the question is some advisors, some key leaders or key personnel within the government actually have to take the flak for this, because as long as it's their purview and it rests within the ambit of their authority and what they need to advise the president on. If he says, tells the president, if he had told the president rather, you know what, this is not the right time to do this, even if the president had muted or asked about it, as a CBN governor, he has what it takes. Don't forget that in all of this, the finance minister actually came out like
she had no idea.
Like it wasn't me, kind of thing. That I had no idea what was going on here. And the CBN governor insisted on a lot of things, even when the Supreme Court came out and gave pronouncements. I mean, it shows that there's a whole lot behind the scene here. And so at the end of the day, so whichever way you want to look at it, Yoruba say, Baba Beron, we can Beron we. If we will blame this one, you also got to blame the other one. So you blame if you go blame the president on whose table the national decisions stops, we also must blame the advisor or the key personnel who actually is in charge of this and what have you. So in a way, I don't see any way we will absolve the CBN governor of all of this and what have you. So he is actually to ask to actually come back and tell the whole nation, why was this and why did this happen? Right. So far, the CBN governor hasn't come out to say, oh, this is what had happened, this is why we did this, this is why we did this. And well, since we have this situation at hand, well, we have to come out and say, we're sorry for whatever hardship people had gone through. And at this point, this is what we're doing about it. Today, let us ask ourselves, nobody's talking about
the redesigned notes.
The redesigned notes.
You can't even find them.
You can't find it.
You can't find them.
You can't find the notes, number one. Number two, the CBN governor had told us that, oh, we're still injecting more. We're injecting more.
Yeah.
You don't pull out over 2-3 trillion naira in notes from the environment, from the market, and from the system, and then you bring in about 900 billion. It doesn't work. It's like you took out a whole 100% and you're giving people 25% or thereabout, and you think that there will be stability. No, it's not going to happen.
It's obvious the CBN governor has a case to answer as it stands.
Absolutely.
And Nigerians are ready to set a precedence using him as it stands, because you have just asked the question, but how are we going to get these answers from him if we are willing to set a precedence? We say he has 10 months. How do we go about holding him to account for all of the hardship that Nigerians went through during his tenure?
Now, to hold him to account is very straight. Number one, don't forget, May 29 is coming. There's a new government coming in place. And while the new government is coming in place, he still remains the CBN governor because his term will still have to run, except he resigns and gives 3 months. That's what the Act says. Or the president then writes to the National Assembly and says, I'm relieving the CBN governor of his office. At that point, 2/3 of the National Assembly of the National Assembly then will have to say yes to it, and then he's no longer the CBN governor. At the same time, don't forget that the DSS actually is smarting out of all of this because they actually had wanted to take him. They have a case against him. Which also borders on terror financing.
Yes.
So that is one thing. How that played out,
or how it will play out.
No, how that played out for them to come out to say the CBN governor is complicit in terror financing is a different ballgame. And how it will play out going forward in the light of this new incoming government and the policies of the government that is coming in when it comes to terror, when it comes to security, when it comes to fiscal policy. Don't forget that the incoming president is an accountant by profession and a political economist. And is also known for bringing in people on board who are technocrats to work with him. So the question is, will those people be also comfortable with a CBN governor that had created so much furor over the last months, nearly 1 year now? And so there's so much things to look at. So for me, I think that it's going to be taking into account it shouldn't be a problem. And he probably also knows. And so before the bailing out, so it's like, you know what, and you're dealing like they say. If you can escape, why? Fine. So this study leave matter becomes like an alibi or a way out. And if he gets out of that... So you
think the presidency or the president is perhaps trying to cover him?
Now, maybe,
is that what it's looking like?
Maybe in the light of... Well, we cannot say. This is also national television. You see, there's a possibility that he's looking for a leeway out, and he could have been given that opportunity by certain people within the environment of the president. I didn't say the presidency. That's where, within the environment of the president, to help ease him out in a way that, okay, fine, because you have 10 months, you want to go on study leave of how many years? They don't tally. So why don't you just wait to end your tenure, and then you can go for study leave? In the first instance, nobody is going to even be able to employ you in Nigeria except as a minister. Which other employment you want to go and carry and say, I beg to apply, except as a minister, or you go for an international role as president of maybe Nexim Bank or whatever, as it were. So in a way, or Afrexim, so in a way, we must look at that. What study leave? To what intent? To achieve what? So we've seen cases where people will go on study leave and then, of course, a way of escape. So this time around, that's why Matawalle is saying, given this rumor, in quotes,
yes,
because we must take it
established that
it is not yet an established fact.
Yeah.
It is still in conjectures. Sarah reporter brought something out, and of course, we've also seen some retort, and from certain youths, so to say, in the north against Matawalle. Yes. Which in its own, you want to ask questions. Whether sponsored or not is not an issue. But the reality is, something has come out. How do we deal with this? The reality, what we must ensure is that the CBN governor is not out of this country. That is the truth. He must stay and answer questions. There's no, where I come from, they said, it is when you do something that is, that actually could be untoward. That's when you begin to watch your back. If you have a clean act, and all that you've done is good, you wait, you stay there, you have your points, you prove it to everybody. They take you to court if they have to take you to court. There's no jungle justice in this matter. There's a legal system to it. If you believe in the legal system that we have, and you believe that everything you've done is based on what is right and what the CBN Act gives you within the purview of the CBN Act, you stay stout and face whatever anybody is saying. You marshal your points in the court of law, and at the end of the day, the court says, yes, this man is not guilty of this,
but
and we let him go.
I wonder what you think, especially in this issue of the naira swap, which a lot of Nigerians are angry about, and well so. Apart from the issues with the DSS, that he has been accused, by the DSS, apart from that issue, when we come to this naira swap issue that Nigerians have not forgotten and not forgiven and may never forgive the CBN governor for that, do you think it's justiciable in a situation where at the process of carrying out the policy of government, whether it is failed or it is botched, whatever the thing is, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
It was a sham. It was disastrous as far as Nigerians are concerned.
Absolutely.
Do you think it's justiciable to prosecute a CBN governor for carrying out a policy of government? Do you think it will stand in the eyes of the law against him even as an institution or even as a person?
I believe that there's always a point of justice in some of these things. One, you got to look at how this has impacted on the people. There can be a class act. let's consider it from that perspective.
Right. There were those who said they were going to
there can be a class
file
act.
a class act. Yeah.
So if you file a class act, it's justiciable. That's for me as a layman. I look at it from that perspective. Secondly, certain other things makes it justiciable. There was a case at the Supreme Court filed by the governors, or by some governors.
Yeah.
And there was a judgment to the effect on that case, which was not adhered to by the CBN governor. That on its own is an infraction. And I believe that that's justiciable. On that premise alone, people can go to court and say that, one, there was contempt of court in the process. And at the same time, the way it has affected the people is such that we've had cases of people. So it becomes, you see, in law, I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard a lot when it comes to being accessories to murder or accessories to this or that. So in the course of the whole issue, people had died.
Yes.
Even a media person was walking to work because there was no way to get money, and he collapsed and died. Yeah. People died in the in what's it called, in banking hall. People died while waiting. In hospitals and what have you. People could not do a whole lot of things. People lost businesses, from farmers to traders to importers and everything. People lost businesses. Some committed suicide that we didn't even hear about. So the question is, how do you aggregate all of these mishaps and effect of someone's policy, and somebody will come out and say it's not justiciable? That means anything goes. Outside of this environment, I'm almost aware that such things actually would not go without prosecution. Because whichever way it is, you are in that office based on the fact that there's a measure of competence that is attributed to you when it comes to managing the economy. So if you fail in that regard, or if you take on certain things and you fail in that regard, and it has such implications, then I believe that something should be done. You can't just allow that to go without consideration, because if it goes, you probably will have somebody else tomorrow, and the implication of that becomes like, okay, as long as you're in government and you are doing something for government, it doesn't matter the implication of whatever you've done. You can always, even if you say, oh, it's a government policy, the question is, if that policy is against the people, then it can, there should be a comeuppance, there should be an implication for that. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it.
So in the incoming administration now, how should they address this matter? Who should occupy this position, the position of the CBN, and how should they address the matter of the economy? How can they help revive, the challenges that Nigerians have witnessed, or the economy has witnessed with regards to all of the policies put in place by the CBN governor?
Okay, one, the first thing to look at is, what are the policies that are anti-people? One, or what are the policies that have actually brought so much anguish to the people? We must look, the new incoming government must look at that. Of course, I'm also aware that the number of people who are actually working on the finance area of the incoming government are technocrats. You have people like Mr. Emeka Wale Edun and the likes and what have you, and quite a lot of others. So the question is, they also know what's going on. They also probably have seen a whole lot of stuff. You have a former CBN governor, a former EMA, SLS, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, who probably also has the ears of the incoming president in a way or the other, possibly. So in a way, is to look at all of this to say, okay, fine, what are the policies that are actually not helping us, that has held us down for so well? Don't forget, in all of this now, nobody is even talking about the African continental free trade areas. And because we're not doing anything in those areas. We're not doing anything about industrialization. Right. And one of the things that this government is the incoming government is talking about, I've heard the president-elect talk about it a whole lot of times, that's talking about industrialization and bringing back the industries, and also looking at a whole lot of ways whereby the economy can be opened up. We've seen him do it in Lagos before. And so there's that hope that the incoming government will actually gradually begin to open up the economy when it comes to industrialization, when it comes to creating opportunities for people. So in a way, gradually, and don't forget that the CBN is not the sole financial or fiscal agency that actually determines solely things within the economy. There's so many other, parastatals and agencies that are whether in Ministry of, what's it called? Whether in Ministry of Finance, whether in
wrap things up now.
Okay. So that's the way it is.
All right, Kenny Adenugba, strategy consultant and public affairs analyst. Thank you for your time on the program.
It's good to be here.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.